Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamlee. We are 25 days away from Election Day in this country. Are you ready? Have you decided who you will vote for? Not just for president, but also for our local races. If you're still undecided, what do you need to consider before you go to the polls? Our Another View Roundtable has some thoughts on this election and other things happening in our nation. The whole group is here. Don Hester, Gayleen Canoyton, Allison Moore, and Dr. Eric Claville. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamlee. It's been a while, but my problem children are here today, y'all. Today, we've got the entire Another View Roundtable in studio, and they have a lot to share, including some thoughts on how our conversations with our besties change over the years. This will be an interesting conversation, so let me introduce our pundits. Don Hester is a career politician and educator and serves as treasurer for the city of Norfolk. Hello, Don. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. I am well.
It's good to see you. If you want to get anything done in the community, then Gayleen Canoyton is your go-to person. She's a professional connector, serves as president of the Hampton NAACP, is first vice chair of organization for the Democratic Party of Virginia, and she knows how to throw a mean party. Hey, Gayleen, what's happening?
I'm ready to roll. Let's go vote.
Absolutely. Dr. Eric Claville is a political and legal analyst and the creator of the award-winning Claville Report, heard right here on Another View. Dr. Albion Lyons was called away at the last minute, but Eric has graciously stepped in her place. How you doing?
Doing great, Barbara. Anything for you and our listeners.
I appreciate that very, very much. And she's Virginia's clean comedian, hosting conferences and events. But wait, there's more. Allison Moore is now teaching at Virginia Wesleyan University. She teaches public speaking mastery and sales mastery at VWU in the evenings. You go, Allison. What's happening?
Hey, y'all. Hey, Barbara. I'm so happy to be here. I missed you all last night.
I know. We missed you, too. So tell us what's going on with your teaching over at VWU.
So apparently being a stand-up comedian with a lot of student loans around human resources, you find yourself doing a lot of public speaking. I'm in that space. And who knew? I've been encouraging people on how to become public speakers, better public speakers, masters. Virginia Wesleyan found me, snatched me up. And so now I've been doing that and doing sales mastery. Being a person with business background in entrepreneurship, I've been able to help people identify their business and go through the psychology of how to sell it and make some money.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you would tell me the classes at night that are free?
Classes are free. Yes, so they are free. So in partnership with the city of Virginia Beach, because I'm just a Hampton girl. I don't know how I found myself through this tunnel, but I like it over here. And so the city of Virginia Beach have partnered with Virginia Wesleyan University, and they offer these classes every 8 weeks, a whole lot of sessions for free, open to the public. So just go to VWU.edu.
VWU.edu.
Yeah, thank you. My dyslexia kicked in.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
fantastic.
much. This has been really fun. That's been fun.
That's awesome. All right, y'all. There are 25 days to go until the general election. Rhetoric is flying high on everything from hurricanes to immigration, personal attacks. For many African Americans, one particularly disturbing alleged trend is that some black men say they will cast their vote for the Republican candidate because they don't trust Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. Before we talk about if that's truth or fiction, let's take a listen.
I seem to be doing very well with black males.
Are you going to vote in November at all?
No, probably not. She doesn't really appeal to like my current circumstances and the things I have going on, as well as a lot of people I know. To sum it all up, it's like broken promises, fake promises, talking about doing certain things that they're not going to really do.
Is it easier to live your life, buy a house, run a business? And it's clear that President Trump has done an amazing job for the African-American community, of course, for me and my family as well. And so I have no qualms about supporting him again this time. And it's clear that 4 years ago, prices were considerably cheaper than where they are now. So if you want it to be a little bit more affordable to live your life, not live paycheck to paycheck, then let's actually vote for the guy who actually made that happen in our lifetime, and that's President Trump.
I've spoken to so many black men who are secretly supporting President Trump. I'm like, come out of the closet, come on, show what you believe in.
Well, since we only have one black male on the panel, I'm going to start with him this time. Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I've had some conversations with black males about the very same issue. And I've said before, I think the bigger issue for Harris as it relates to men, that demographic is not going to be, and also some women as well, it's not going to be the race, because we've seen this before. She's been vice president. We've had a black president. So race, we've crossed that barrier to where that's not been an issue. Mm-hmm. The issue is going to be having a female, whether it be a black female, white female, a female in that position. Hillary Clinton had the same issue with men not seeing a woman in that position. There's only been one major democracy. And, if we take a look at England, Great Britain during that time with Margaret Thatcher, leading the quote unquote world superpower. Now, of course, we do have women in other European nations as heads of prime ministers, heads of states, and things of that nature. But there's only been one, and that's Margaret Thatcher. And if you take a look back at history, Margaret Thatcher didn't believe in promoting women in her administration because she felt that they were the same. Really, it was the same stereotypical things that men are talking about. They're more emotional. They were not as strong as men and the like. So she made it over, but threw the rope back. I've had an individual ask me, and these are educated men, by the way. They said, "Do you really think she could do the job?" That's some of the questions that I get. So, we're having these honest conversations. I'm saying, hey, she's been attorney general. She's been a U.S. senator. She's been vice president. Why do you not think that she could do the job, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the final hurdle. If we're looking at America, if we're looking at the president of the United States, that job, that's the final hurdle that we have to cross.
So it's gender, it's not race.
Exactly. Yeah, it is gender, hands down.
Gayleen, I was watching your face as the clip was playing, and you looked like you physically were in pain. What?
Well, one of them I definitely knew was not a Democrat. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that. I know one of them was definitely not a Democrat. And then I want to say, so your mama couldn't run the president, couldn't run the country? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we always think of our mothers as being strong women, and they can do almost anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, for the most part, So when we talk about gender, I just question. I've talked to some black males, and the black males will tell us some of them, and I don't want to say a lot. Okay, mm-hmm. I don't use the word a lot. I don't use the word many. I'll just say some black men, right? Mm-hmm. And when they say they're not going to vote, I said, well, you're making a choice anyway. Right. When you don't vote, you're making a choice. And they need to understand that. But this is more than about gender, and this is more than about race. This is about democracy, And voting is our currency to democracy. It really is. And so this is a bigger picture than just gender and race. And anytime you have Elizabeth and Dick Cheney come out to support Kamala Harris, and this team, the Harris-Walsh team, that's a big deal. That sends a big message in the direction where this country needs to go in. Yeah.
Republicans in Northern Virginia.
Yes.
Former U.S. congresspersons had a rally, actually a meeting where they said we're going to support Harris over Trump. So, to your point.
And you've got military leaders that's coming out, former military leaders that are coming out in support of her. You got to look at the biggest trend. But we got to get these grassroots folks. I mean, I'm going around to cocktails and conversations, talking to them. I'm going to the clubs. We are actually talking to them one-on-one to find out, not talking at them, but talking with them. What is your issue? No, that $1,500 stimulus check did not come from Trump. It came from Congress.
It just
He
had his
signed the
signature
check.
on it.
Yeah.
He signed the check and sent the letter, but that little $1,500 did not change your life. It might change your moment.
But to that point, because when we're talking about grassroots, there's a lot of very targeted things happening towards the black male community in terms of from the Trump campaign. Misinformation, disinformation runs amok, and so. And Trump is a salesperson. I mean, he insisted that his name be on that check.
Yes, he did, because he was marketing himself, because he knew that people would think that it came from him. So when I send you your real estate bill and your personal property bill, got my name on it.
That's right.
But what does that mean? It just means that you owe it. And the check just means that you're receiving it. But you have to understand how the system works. You know, we talk about living in a system that hasn't been beneficial to black men or has been not good for black men. Court system, things like that. We're in a system, and people need to understand that in this system, Vice President Harris, speaking of her as a woman of color, she has things that she knows she wants to do. But if she doesn't have a Congress, no, she's not going to get them done. And then we're going to go back to the broken promise. She said she wanted to do these things. She does want to do those things. But if you don't vote for the House and for the Senate, where she has people of like mind agreeing with the bills that will come forward, then no, she can't get it done. So you have to understand that there's a whole picture to it. It's not just her. She can put the idea forward. She can understand how it works within the system to get it done, where the money will come from. But no, she can't do it alone.
She can't make it happen.
But she's telling you, though, what people, and we know this, need. How to get that down payment to get your home. How to pay for your child care. How to get rid of those student loans that are burdens to you so that you can't improve. With the economy and everything going up was a result of the Trump administration and understanding
and
economy,
COVID.
Right, and COVID, but understanding economy, we rise and we fall. How much do we rise and then how much do we fall? Right now, we have been balancing in these years of the Biden administration where we have gotten us to a steady path. It's still high, yes, but nothing's going to cost what it cost back then, period. Yeah. It's just not going back there. Might be lower. Your interest rate might be lower on your credit card, but the price is not going back there. So that's not realistic, and you have to understand and know those things.
Allison, you are always on social media. You're seeing things that are happening. What's the conversation that you're seeing?
In addition to being on social media, I'm also in front of new groups of large audiences, oftentimes every weekend, twice a week, hosting events or something like that. And so I'm meeting people, and I don't really like the narrative that black men are not voting for Kamala. Like, I don't see that. Right. And I invite people to like a reframe. I think somebody that's a misogynist is not voting for a woman. Someone who's been impacted by racism or got discrimination or this whole power to proximity of whiteness is not voting for Kamala. And many people happen to be black. There are men that are black that don't like women. A lot of times when you do a reverse engineering, it's not a well thoughtful man that's like, oh, that's Kamala. I'm changing my mind because it's her. He probably won't go and work for no woman anyway. He probably got mama issues anyway. He probably has not had experiences with a woman anyway. And it just so happened that there's a woman that's running for president. He forget her, and he happened to be black. But it is so weird to me that it's like people are really taking on black men, and they don't like her. The ones who was gonna have an issue, they're gonna have an issue that's anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's more of that. But I think we might be like, oh, but you are black. How could you not? So I think we are realizing that, we put a lot of expectation on because we assumed that people should be having this connection with her simply because they were black. Right. But I don't think it's black men.
And let me add one quick thing to that, and to Alice's point. It's been going on in the workplace forever.
Exactly.
Correct.
Forever.
Me, when I was in human resources as a leader, they was not mad at me.
Don't want a female leader or manager. But let me just say this: when I talk to young black males now, I tell them 2 weeks ago the nation witnessed a public lynching. We saw Marcellus Williams, who was on death row, an innocent man on death row. His accusers came out at the last minute to say that they lied. Had some of these men come out in 2016, they would have been granted a stay because the right people would have been on the Supreme Court, sensible folks on the Supreme Court. It wouldn't have been politicized, and they would have been granted a stay. Investigation would have been done, and he would have been alive today. Presidents chooses justices, and they choose judges. Lifelong. And if Trump gets back into office, Alito and Thomas will resign, and he'll put in younger judges. Watch what I tell you.
Well, speaking of the commander-in-chief, Erica, since you brought this up to begin with, all the stuff that's happening in the Middle East right now, how much does that play? Do you think that will play also into the people who haven't made up their minds yet and are about to go to the polls? Will that make a difference? Are people worried that a woman can't be commander-in-chief?
It's very, very interesting you bring up that point. I've always said the next president will be a war president. We see it happening now. We see the conflicts in the Middle East. We see the conflicts still in Europe. And I keep mentioning the South Asian Sea with China. We're going to have to deal with China. So with that being the case, I think that plays tremendously with America and men and women as well. I want to make sure that we continue to drive that point, because there are women in traditional roles that don't believe that women should be in those leadership positions, right? So I think that plays a major part in seeing a woman as commander-in-chief, especially in these particular times, right? So, one of my colleagues, Will Levis, texted me. He said, Mexico has their first female president, right? Yes. So, and then he said men that not voting for Harris probably don't vote anyway, But at the end of the day, I think the campaign should show her more in a light of leadership. I know she went to the border. Pictures of her in the command room, war room with President Biden, things of that nature, because, the visual is everything, as it relates to that.
This is so interesting to me. I really hadn't thought about the difference of getting over the gender gap versus the racial gap. That's very interesting to me.
Both. It's both.
Okay.
It's just, it just hasn't changed. No matter how much we work at it. Well, it has changed. It's just slow. It is just slow and changing. And
But that woman,
you got to pull your mic up.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're a leader. You're the treasurer, Norfolk treasurer. So you have to see it.
Right, and you all don't know the battles that I've had to fight. In my role in fighting, and not, I don't want to say fight, but I had to.
But I mean, was that an issue in terms of your election, for example?
Yes.
The fact that you were a woman.
In the beginning, yes. Remember, I was the first black woman elected to the Norfolk City Council, and that was in 1996. So the white men and the black men, they didn't want me. Remember, it was a black man that ran against me to try to get me out of my seat. That they convinced to run against me. Why are people so gullible? But anyway, that's another issue. That's another story. To put that down for us to come and talk about. And we listen to information that is not accurate, which is going on now.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to decipher it.
Well, and you bring up a really good point, because I was going to say, so Hurricane Milton slammed into Florida just last night, right? So we got flooding, tornadoes, punishing winds. Along with the storm, there's this flood of misinformation. Donald Trump, for example, insisting falsely that money for FEMA is being diverted to help illegal immigrants at the border, and that people in states still reeling from Hurricane Helene are getting no help. The White House vigorously denies the allegation. And to your question, Dawn, why are people so gullible that they would prefer to believe this because it does impact whether they vote or not.
It all goes back to who you listen to, what you listen to, because to me, we are now more on social media than what,
mainstream
an
media.
older person like me would, looking at the mainstream media, because I don't look on social media, but I also know how to look at the source. Because I have friends, you have your group texts and friends are sending things out to you. Mm-hmm. And then, I'll get something and I was going to say, did you check that source? So look at it. And then they come back and say, oh, yeah, thanks, Dawn. Because, it was coming from somewhere off where it was not true.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Kayleen?
Kayleen is like, why we having this conversation?
I have to go back to we were talking about the border, or we're talking about international, politics in terms of leaders in other countries, female leaders in other countries. This thing with the border, on Trump saying that, they're going to come over here and take our black jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was something on social media, and you all had to see this, but they put it. This is the best thing I've seen. If someone with no education who can't speak English is able to walk across the border and take your job, we need to have a serious conversation about upgrading your job skills. I'm serious.
I'm teaching classes at Virginia Wesleyan professional public speaking. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but my point, my point is that, first of all, it's illegal to hire someone to bring someone in, even though they do it underground. And they're not going to come right in and take your corporate job or take your job working in a warehouse right away like that legally. But he has everyone thinking that they're all the resources and everything is going directly to these illegal folks who come over here. And there's a process, but that voice is so much larger. And that's misinformation.
But when you look at the polls, the younger people seem to be the ones, according to the polls. And I know everybody doesn't listen to the polls, and I get that. But it's people, that are like 18 to 40-ish that really seem to buy into or feed off the social media. Eric, I'll come to you and then to you, Allison, about that. And believing that as opposed to fact-checking or trying to figure out what the truth is.
No surprise there. That generation grew up with an iPhone in their hand. That's how they get their information. That's how they're entertained. That's how they live. So the information that comes through these phones play a pivotal role in their lives, which is why it's very important that the information that we put across there is accurate, and that's why misinformation flourishes. I did see a news broadcast on yesterday about misinformation and the White House trying to battle against it, and people in line at rallies in Pennsylvania, more specifically Scranton, where President Biden is from, and they were asking people in line, do you believe that money's being diverted? And they were like, absolutely we believe it. They said, well, the president of the United States said it's not the case. The head of FEMA said it's not the case. And the lady said, well, we believe Trump. I believe it's happening. They're lying, and so forth. And this was all through the line. So if you're going to believe who you want to believe, but those are biases that individuals have in themselves that causes them to believe a lie as opposed to the truth, because it's easier, because it justifies what they believe in themselves.
Yeah, I don't want to tussle with Eric just in case he might want to hire me for something. But I don't see it the same way. Like I see, because that's my generation. Mm-hmm. We asking our mamas. I think that there is a lot of, we might see something, but then we are still going to the elders and saying, can you tell me about this? And I don't really see, even when you were talking about the whole, the border piece and with what's happening in the Middle East, the people who are not tapped in to what's happening, if they're undecided, they're not about to be changed right now by that. Like, I don't see where we are really giving credit to paying attention to where the source is coming from. Does that make sense? Like, to me, it's we need not listen to them 6 people that got the soundbite. They weren't voting anyway. They didn't read a book anyway. And then the generation that may be on the border on the polls, I don't see us as saying, oh, well, social media said it, so now I'm changing my mind. We're going to the people who raised us, the aunts and uncles. I told you about my experience on a 36-year-old white friend that I just made in the airport this weekend, who referenced the word colored. He said colored. He is 36, and he said, my sister, she dating a colored. I'm like, don't say that. He's like, well, why? My daddy said that's exactly why you shouldn't say it. But that's because of where we're raised, the biases that Eric was talking about, and not because Instagram told us, and now we taking off and running with it. I think we're villainizing social media a lot more than we
I
should.
think the point that Eric talked about, the process, okay? A lot of the generation we're speaking to don't understand the process. I was at a gun violence event, and it was in a little bistro, and it was mothers whose sons were killed, and it was returning citizens, and they were talking. They so sick of the gun violence themselves, just like we are, and they were talking about how to solve it amongst themselves. And at the end, they asked, "Were there any resources?" And I got up and I told them who I was, and I said, "We need you in Richmond. We need these stories at the General Assembly, because these are the laws that would change your lives." And when I explained it to them, they all signed up and said, when you're ready to go, Miss Gayleen, come on, we're ready to go with you.
100%.
We have to start teaching the process on how their vote changed lives.
I mean, because look at me. Look at where I started before and how much y'all have helped me out. Y'all had to tell me, 6 months ago not to pay the kids to vote. I didn't know that.
Yes,
like, it's who we connected to.
If you're just joining us,
I was ready to. I was going to get commission.
I'm going to get them some pizza and everything. No, can't do that.
No, you can't do that.
I was like, I got
no. You can't do that.
They was like, don't.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about current events with the Another View Roundtable. Norfolk City Treasurer Dawn Hester, political consultant and president of the Hampton NAACP, Gayleen Knoyton, political analyst Dr. Eric LaVille, and clean comedian and instructor at Virginia Wesleyan University, among many other things, Allison Moore. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Reynold joins us from, I'm not sure where you're from, but you're joining us. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon from Norfolk.
Oh, from Norfolk. There it is. Okay, I see it now. Okay. Go ahead.
My thing is that the Democrats are weak on their messages. They, you look back at the Trump administration, we speak about his economy, and black men are saying they were better off under his economy than what they are now. However, what the Democrats failed to talk about was the fact that the previous president, Obama, had that set up. We all believed that that lady was going to win. Either way, it was set up for the next person. So he looked good for the first few years. Thereafter, when the economy started to tank, he had no idea how to fix it. Nothing. Other than run around and talking about himself and doing things for himself.
Okay, thank you, Reynolds. We appreciate the phone call. So his point being that that people are not paying attention to exactly what is happening within the world. They're just taking But so here's a question though. If you've already in the base, you've already made up your mind, you're already a part of a camp, what needs to be said, or how do you convince others who may not be in a particular camp to actually go out and vote anyway? What, Dawn?
Well, people need to believe in the person that they're voting for. Many people.
Okay.
The policies that they want to produce, or the things that they want to do to make things better for you and for your family. That's what people listen to. Some want to follow because some believe that the racial divide needs to be divided even more. And they believe that under Trump administration that they will receive more because they are of the same hue as him. And those of us who are of color will not receive. And so that will then be beneficial to them. So people are looking at it from different ways and different perspectives. And they're not thinking about the fact that, if certain rights are taken away from people of color, that's you too.
So it will be taken away from everyone.
Yeah, you got to think a little further than that little power strip. And for me, I don't want anybody telling me what to do anymore.
Are you worried, Eric, that we've identified a Trump camp, we've identified a Harris camp, and those who say they're kind of in the middle may go in and actually go in a different direction than we think they're going? I mean, is that because that's what happened with Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, a lot of people said, I'm voting for her. And then they went into the ballot box and they did something totally different.
Yeah. Well, number one, that's our right to do.
Sure.
Right. If you don't agree with the top two on the ballot, because we're in America, our democracy is a two-really party system, you have the right to vote for a third party. Someone else will write your name or somebody else's name in. That's your right to do. With that being said, it does show where the two parties, and the caller said Democrats are bad at messaging, and that's something that I spoke with Democrats about and we agree. I mean, just the messaging itself and getting the message over and connecting. It's easy to use, it's easy to falsify, it's easy to provide misinformation and a lie because it travels, because you're appealing to that person's bias. It's very easy to do that. It's much harder to convince individuals with truth and facts because you have to tear down. So what ends up happening when you don't put forth that extra effort, what ends up happening is those individuals go into the booths or they don't go vote at all, and they vote for someone, to be very honest with you, that's not going to make a difference in the election.
Because the bottom line is it takes work. To be an informed voter, you have to work.
Correct.
Right?
Right. And that's why when Allison said that, we go to your mama or your auntie or whatever, you go to the person that you trust. And then
sometimes they misinformed.
Exactly. And that's how you get in the mess. I think that the slither of people who's a big people that are, I don't know if I should vote, that will vote, the only people we can turn, people made up their mind. They're going either or not, right? You can't change somebody's heart in how many days?
25 days.
Thank you, 25 days. But there are some people that if you explain to them, they are not aware of what will happen if they don't. So that group of people, like when you all told me I can't go and bribe these teenagers, but I did go back and I said to them, okay, if we allow a president who believes in immunity for police officers, if they murder someone, who do you think will get shot first? Do you look like the people who are going to be on the receiving end of that or the not receiving end of that? Those kind of conversations like, oh, shoot, I'm the one that's afraid of the cops. Like when you help people come to that type of enlightenment, that will motivate the people who were like, well, the reason why I'm not voting because I don't see the point. Those are the only people to me that you can still change. But people who don't like women, we're not going to change them. People who don't like we're not going to change them. But the ones who really are disconnected with how powerful their individual vote is, those are the ones. But you got to get that what's in it for me or what happens to you.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Carol joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Carol. You're on the air.
Hey, Barbara. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
I love the conversation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. I just wanted to say, I think this is so relevant, the gender factor, because I did not think it was a factor until last week. I had a woman knock on my door. She's campaigning for the Harris-Walsh administration, and she asked if I voted, and I said, yes, ma'am, you better believe it. And I already voted. And we got to talking, and she was rather despondent, and she herself was African-American. I said, what's going on? She was a little younger than me, and she's like, I'm running against, she said, I'm pretty upset because I'm knocking on doors, and when invariably I knock on black men's door, a lot of them are like, well, I don't want no woman telling me what to do. And I was like, what? I was shocked. I mean, it's just, so yes, there is, and you guys, have touched on this. There is definitely a gender factor. I think more than a race factor. Yeah. From what her experience was anyway. This woman had been canvassing, for several days. So I just wanted to pass that on,
Okay.
to this person. Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thanks, Carol, for the call. Go ahead, Allison.
So, y'all, that's like a whole gender thing because, I'm outside in these streets. I'm dating, right? That's a whole nother story. But so I started dating somebody who I'm like, he drinks whiskey. Now, this was a short-lived date. Let me tell you why. He drinks whiskey. So I said, Beyonce got whiskey. And he was like, well, I wouldn't drink whiskey made by a woman.
I said, wait, well, you would what? He was like, you would, because how can a woman do that? That's a man's drink. And I'm like, huh? There are men that lead women, like who you think lead Victoria's Secret. So in other words, there is really this, people are still very much so locked into the gender and a woman's inability to do anything that appears to be masculine.
Well, that goes back. That goes back to.
He's an non-factor. He don't get a name now.
That's a part of the other side of this argument where men are trying to keep women in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Men are trying to tell you still gonna have babies whether you want to or have them or not.
Which goes back to
the gender piece of control and power over you.
Staying
and
in the
if
kitchen.
it's ingrained.
Well, also, Don, there are some people that believe in traditional, we call now traditional values, and that's your right to do.
I don't have a problem with it.
But at the end of the day, it goes back to ensuring that we have that communication to say, hey, let's look at history. Let's look what individuals can do. And this next president, if it becomes a woman, is going to be the one that shattered that glass ceiling and show that it can be done. But I will say that England hasn't had another woman prime minister since.
Well, I'll keep my comments to myself.
It doesn't make them smart.
Exactly.
Because they have the selected ones.
If anybody want to keep me in the house, I mean, I can't cook. I can't have no babies.
All right, so we talk a lot about the presidential race, but there are other offices up for grabs, including the Senate race between Tim Kaine and Hung Cowell. Norfolk State hosted the only debate between the candidates. Eric, why was this so critical? Tell us about what happened.
Yeah. Behold, that's actually the green goal. So again, we want to thank both candidates and also our broadcast partner, Wavy TV 10 and Nexstar Corporation and their national affiliate News Nation for working with us to ensure that this debate was the best, because it was the only one for the statewide race. This was us hosting our second U.S. Senate debate at the university, the first being Mark Warner in 2020, and also the only gubernatorial roundtable. It was very important to have it here at Norfolk State because, number one, it shows the value that HBCUs have and the importance of the area of Norfolk and Hampton Roads. Hampton Roads is the center for political power. And with that being the case, Norfolk State is the place to have this very important discussion. Not only that, but there are a lot of issues that affect communities that are marginalized. There were questions about reparations. There were questions about HBCUs. There were questions about student loans.
Things that the national press is not covering or talking about.
They were not cover or talk about, and we had those questions asked, and the candidates were on the record in their statements about those issues. That's why it was so important. In addition to that, it was the number one broadcast here in Hampton Roads and the Richmond markets, and it was seen nationwide by 3.65 million people. So again, those questions, they were asked, and they were important because we were going to ask those questions, and we got it on record. So again, thank everybody for participating and the work that we're doing, and we're going to continue.
And Gayleen, I know with the NAACP and everything else that you're involved in, you guys are really pushing to get people to the polls, regardless of how they vote.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as our national president says, and I'm putting on my NAACP hat because my other hat is always Gayleen Knoyton, I'm telling you, with everything else I do. But our national president always say that we're nonpartisan, but we political as hell, and we got T-shirts to say it. But we are pushing out to turn out the vote. We have flyers, with the QR codes, but not only to register to vote, check your voter registration up until you vote.
To make sure your address is matching.
Yes, because some people are being dropped from the rolls or might have some issues or whatever. No one should ever be turned from the polls whatsoever. But the early vote numbers have been phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Really? Okay, yes. So people really are coming out. Our phone lines are lit up. So let's talk to Elizabeth in Smithfield. Hi, Elizabeth. You're on the air.
Hello. I strongly believe that gender is going to play a role, and it's going to hurt Vice President Harris. I myself have been a lawyer for 35 years. I've practiced law in Virginia since 1989. I was actually Democratic candidate for the House of Delegates back in 97 and a local Democratic Party chair. And I have experienced layers of discrimination. I unfortunately believe men fear strong women. I think women are intimidated by strong women. And that's why I believe, this is going to
that's what's going to hurt her candidacy.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate that. I mean, this gender issue is really striking a chord with our listeners. Go ahead.
But not only will it hurt her, I don't think it's going to really hurt her. I think it's going to, I mean, you're going to have some people not going to vote for her, but we got so many new voters. Yeah. Voter registration is up by 175% amongst young voters.
That's a good reframe.
Let's talk to Eli in Norfolk. Hi, Eli, you're on the air.
Hi, Bob. How you doing? I listen to your show every Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to get through. But I just want to make this quick comment. This myth about black men not voting for Harris is just a myth. Because we, as black men, especially in the city of Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake, we all for her. When Biden was in the race, a lot of my constituents and friends, and I'm in the construction industry, so I'm around thousands and thousands of men, black men, and we wasn't leaning. We weren't so excited about Biden. Some of us was not going to vote. Some of us was going to vote for Trump. But once she got in the race, it was a done deal. We all for Harris, and she's going to wipe up the floor with Trump. That's
right. That's right.
Thank you, Eli, so much for the call. I really appreciate that. So we can see there's just kind of this back and forth, but I was just gender just had never. Maybe it's because I'm just used to being around strong women who are leaders, and so the fact that was becoming an issue or is an issue is just surprising to me.
And on both sides of the aisle,
right?
You know, you hear people say, "Women get it done." On both sides of the aisle, they'll say, women get it done because we're going to work to get it done. So just carry that forth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have another phone line or are we?
Shout out to Eli. He made me smile. That's right. Not too much on the black man. Because they are out there.
Shout out to him.
Two people that ain't voting for her because
I love it. We've got people from all over. So Gerald joins us from Zunai. Hi, Gerald. You're on the air.
Hi, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Ma'am, I just wanted to bring up the point that in addition to messaging, I think the Democrats do have to take another look at some of the results that they're producing because one of their weak areas is, obviously inflation is one of them, but the other thing is the number of homeless, right? We have 653,000 homeless people in the United States, and that's basically the same size as Boston, Massachusetts. So that would be the 25th largest city in the United States. And the majority of the homeless are in California, right, which is a Democrat stronghold. And not only that, but California and New York are losing population. Those people are migrating out of those states, and there has to be a reason why, right? It's either kitchen table, probably economics is what's driving it. But as those states, those Democratic strongholds start to lose population in the 2030 census, they're going to lose power by losing seats in the House of Representatives. So in addition to messaging, if the Democrats want to really focus on retaining power or even growing power in our system, they really have to take a hard look at the results.
Okay. Thank you so much for the call, Gerald. We appreciate that.
And we need to talk more about the successes
that
we have had because we have results with success. This administration, especially President Biden, has done more than any president in this short period of time than any president since FDR. Seriously.
Okay.
So
name a couple things.
Infrastructure bill. Let's talk about the infrastructure bill. That was huge.
Right.
It's brought more jobs. It's also brought business to small businesses. You know, it brought money to localities.
So why do you think that? Because I have been critical also of the Democratic Party in terms of messaging, in terms of telling the story. Why do you think that there's that disconnect? Anybody?
I think that especially, I think there's some conditioning, some societal conditioning. Okay, so obviously the Democrats, we are more of a colored, I don't know why that word keeps coming up, group, right? So there's this mindset that we have to play nicer. You can't be as egregious. You got to,
button up, code switch, and so we have this softer approach, this more, we can be higher. Because people, like he said, the messaging is off, but I don't see the Republicans outside talking about what they're gonna do for the homeless crisis.
They only got concepts.
So it's like you expecting us to do something you're not really doing, and then you coming for us.
But again, that goes with misinformation.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Creating that lie, that falsehood, and it just takes a life of itself. But again, I agree. The callers are right. I've spoken with individuals who are elected officials or Democrats. Unfortunately, Democrats just have a bad time messaging the great things that they do to fix what Republican administrations mess up. When it comes to whether it's the economy, the budget. If you look at the budget, when we look at deficits, they explode in Republican times, they decrease in Democratic times, balancing the budget and so forth.
Which is the reason why I asked you, Gayleen, to say
and you got the
what else?
Okay. Let's talk about diabetes. Let's talk about the medication. $35.
Yeah.
I mean, this president went up against the pharmaceutical world. He did, and she was right there with them. Kamala was right there with them. So Kamala was right there with them. But the bottom line to it all is that you can go right online and look at it, and we need to just talk about 3 or 4 different points that applies to people. When I talk about diabetes, it snaps right then and there, because a lot of people in the black community,
you're bringing it down to real issues.
You're bringing it down to real issues. When I talk about jobs, if you look at the jobs increase, has massively increased, and we need to talk more about that. But we also need to talk about, what she's going to do in terms of housing, for new home buyers, giving them $25,000. People who have babies, give them $6,000. We need to talk about these things that she says she's going to do. We hold her accountable to, to what she's doing on her platform. But we need to know what it is, and we need to be able to relay it in 3 or 4 points, not a laundry list, 3 or 4 points that applies to what's important to that particular voter.
And back to your point, Don, about also explaining exactly how it works, because everybody thinks that, or it comes across as people thinking, okay, the president said they were going to do this, therefore they can.
And that's not it.
No.
You got to have the Congress.
Let's see. Lisa, do we have time for one more call? Yeah, let's go to Joe in Surrey. Hi, Joe. You on the air?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, Joe. How you doing? It's good to hear from you.
Joe Jenkins.
Fantastic.
Hey, Joe.
Fantastic. Listen, I do not believe that men are so stupid to vote for what's his name, Trump. We, as black men, will vote for Kamala Harris in big numbers. We should stop being so downtrodden, I guess, in terms of how we're looking at this. We've come a long way. We've come a long way as men and women, black men and women together. And we're going to do this, and we're going to elect her together.
Thank you so much for the call, Joe. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Joe.
I really do. So we got about less than 5 minutes, 6 minutes left. I do want to get this last question in because I just found this so interesting. So been having some conversations with my besties recently and have noticed that our conversation has shifted from, kid issues and the latest clothing and all of that into legacy. And we've been spending a lot of time talking about the legacy we're going to leave, what's happening. And I'm just curious as to since you all are all different ages and so forth, have you noticed a switch? And Don, you and I are close in age, so I just want to start with you.
I just had a birthday Monday.
Oh, happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Yes.
Happy birthday!
And legacy is on the issue. I'm like, how much am I leaving my great-grands? How much am I leaving my grands? How much can I play with so I can do the things that I want to do? Our conversations are about health. Our conversations are about, have you done all that you need to do for when you transition from this earth so that your family doesn't have to do it? So do you have your plot? Do you have your program? Do you have your own obituary written so they don't have to do all that? Those are the kind of things that we talk about, that we've been talking about here lately.
I know. It's just so, I guess because, as you're growing up, I don't know, maybe I just never thought, I'm happy to be in this space, but it's like, this is really different than it has been before.
Look, let me clean out my house because I don't want them to have to come in here and deal with all this stuff that I got.
Yeah.
Well, I think in addition to what Dawn said, is that my legacy is what difference did I make in someone's life? You know, I met with some 8th graders the other day, and I gave them all VIP bracelets.
Oh.
And I said, "What is it? You know what it is?" They said, "No." I said, "You're a very important person because you're gonna make very important decisions in the next generation for my kids and my grandkids, you know, and whatever I can do to make a difference." And then you get to the point. Well, I'm gonna live to be 150 years old, so I probably got 70 some more years to go. But you start thinking about, okay, look at the lifespans, and do I have enough time to get done what I need to done? And that's where I am right now.
That's
is that what
yeah.
what do I have left?
What else do you have then? Eric, what about you?
Yeah.
You talking, because I know you got guys talk. They always talk about women, but y'all talk.
No, look, absolutely. Listen, when I was 29 years old, I was in successions class, and there was a case that was horrendous. I went to the office after that. I was working for an elected official. I didn't do any work that day. I wrote my will at 29 years old, and when I found out my wife was pregnant, we were pregnant with both our sons, I wrote out the 25-year plan for them as well, right? To help to establish them to where they could have a successful life. Legacy is about pouring into, number one, people, but also pouring into yourself and finding your purpose. With that being the case, it's always a conversation that I've had, you know, with my family, with myself, with my immediate family, and my extended family. And I implore everyone to ask yourself, number one, as Mark Twain said, the 2 most important days of your life is the day that you're born, and the second is the day you realize why you were born. When you do that, you end up becoming and being exactly what God wants you to be. And I'll end with, you know, what we do on this earth is important for other people, but at the end of the day, only what you do for Christ will last. So in looking at not just the temporal, but the eternal as well, is something that we talk about a lot.
That dash.
Allison.
I think it's the same conversation as you all are having, but just for maybe a different reason, right? Maybe the root. But, you know, like what you were saying, is the house in order. So for a lot of my mother is in heaven, but my friends are like, "Oh, shoot, girl, let me ask my mama, she got a will." Because this is about to be, like, we're asking the same thing.
Facts.
These funny looking kids, whether they in 2nd grade or they in 12th grade, like, they're really stressed around here. You know, money, we talking about money all the time. And we are talking about the trauma of waiting until we're 50, 60 to be thinking about legacy versus like, oh girl, I think we should be thinking now about the impact that we're about to leave on these people around us. So I think it's, you know, similar to these same conversations. Now, I do meet some people who vibrating a little lower, and we went to high school too, and they not having the same conversations, right? So
what conversations they have?
You can't talk about it on the radio.
Yeah. You know, it's not about health. It's not about how they're looking. You know, again, it's not a self-righteous thing. My health conversations might be a little because I'm superficial, right? It may not be because I want to live long, maybe because I'm trying to be fine outside in these streets. But I think it's some of the same conversations. You know, life is lifing, and we are evolving people.
Well, you all are all beautiful people as far as I am concerned.
You too.
And I really appreciate the time that you spend here with us every second Thursday at noon. So thank you, Roundtable. Thank you so much. And we will never, ever on Another View, listeners, tell you who to vote for. But we do implore you to vote. Your vote matters. Visit vote.gov for more information. That's just a short one. There's tons of websites out there. Look for something credible and read it and find out what you need to do in order to be ready. And be sure to check out our Another View podcast on Spotify at anotherviewradio.org or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Now, next week on Another View, this is going to be really interesting. We're having an Another View history lesson. And this is going to be a conversation between Frederick Douglass and James Fayette about General Lafayette's farewell tour of America as the nation's guest and the time he spent in Portsmouth, Virginia. So we've got reenactors here. It's going to be fabulous. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer. And Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. Welcome back, Dr. Graham. We're so happy you're here. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Do your part. Please vote. And let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.